What's up, fam? I I feel inspired to do a half-assed explanation of the chrism and the opening of the third eye, or pineal gland experience. I'm a little apprehensive because I'm doing this in like rant form, and it's important that this be verified, kind of with like the specifics of the biology and the physics and everything like that. But I'm not doing that right now. I'm going to use basically my memory, and I don't know. I'm like a bit of a perfectionist. I want especially something as important as this. I prefer to kind of do it with all like prefer to do it perfectly. Anyways, because I don't want to say something misleading or not say enough because I don't want to be misleading. But anyways, I feel inspired, and so I'm gonna roll with it. And also, I don't think I've ever read or seen an explanation of the chrism. I don't even know what to call it. The chrism experience, mechanism, phenomenon that isn't rife with religious undertones. And I'm neither here nor there about that, because symbolism and mystery school teachings, they have to reach us somehow. And many different mystery schools actually teach of the chrism experience, but chrism, Christ, yeah, you can see the connections and how easy it would be for that to just be more of the mainstream kind of way to explain it. And also, it more or less explains it, at least the methodology of its activation, enough that it's effective. But it's just like tons of like, I don't know. And then it's like, it doesn't matter that you don't know. It's mimicking the Jesus Christ experience. And don't get me wrong, Jesus Christ was badass. But it has, like, everything has a physical or metaphysical, and biological and subtle biology to it. And this is going to be my little spit into that for anybody that ends up seeing this, which is probably going to be no one. But it's helpful for me to say it. So the main mechanism for the chrism experience is electromagnetism. And then, just so that we're on the same page, chrism experience was that I want to try it. Essentially, the honey in the milk, it's basically the secretions of the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. And when they are treated, they take on a kind of transformation, like a molecular electrical transformation, that thereby sends different and kind of activating signals to your hormonal system and your nervous system and your brain and all that shit. And this kind of can kickstart what we call a Kundalini awakening or third eye opening. And it's all very magical. It's all very spiritual. And I'm being only a little facetious. because it really is. But it's like, this is how it happens. All right. So the main mechanism is electromagnetism, and why I say that is because it's the main mechanism for or vehicle, that which carries the mechanism, is electromagnetism, and I say that because it's information and fields. And these waves, field waves, carry information. Think of Wi-Fi. Think of radio. It's the same thing. And so it's just transporting information and delivering information. That's why I say it's the main mechanism. And then I got some killer throat chakra shifts going on. Throat biology shifts going on. And so the next kind of valence or sphere of movement would be the cerebrospinal fluid. Now, this fluid originates from the part of the brain that we call the claustrum. I couldn't be more specific, but it's not on the top of my head. I didn't do any fucking research or anything like this before. I just feel like talking about it. And it's less important than it's happening. Where it secretes from is from specialized cells in the brain that secrete this fluid that opens into basically a cavity in the brain where that is in between the cerebellum and the cerebrum. So those are like in some ways you can look at the brain is in two parts, and I don't mean the left and the right hemisphere. I mean basically the reptile and mammalian brain as one brain. That's just like we just encapsulate in the cerebellum, and then the human brain we'd call the cerebrum. And you think of like these, like a kind of globe, and then the globe wears a hat. And then in between the globe and the hat would be this interstitial type space where Santa Claus lives. And these cavities is where the pineal gland in your brain sit, as well as the pituitary gland, and they're pretty kind of closed off in their own ways. Anyway, but the cerebrospinal fluid does rest in these, or rather, it has access to these glands and the hormones that they secrete. So the fluid is created, and it kind of rests it's like almost like a wading pool, and it picks up these hormones and information. It's like this is your brain state in the beginning, and it takes all the information of the state as it is now. It takes all these hormones and everything like that to be transported through the rest of the body. And then it begins to travel down the spine through basically a column. It's like your lymphatic. You can look at it as like your lymphatic system. It's easier and more accurate to think of it as basically like a channel that runs alongside kind of the main nerves and the spinal nerves and like the spinal blood arteries / veins that run up and down the spine. So it kind of like travels down with it. And then along the way, it has okay. So it travels down the base through like the occipital hole. I'm embarrassed to be doing this with not knowing the names of things so much, but it's been a while since I looked into it because I know it. But it's a full moon today, and that's relevant. And you know what? I don't need to be more specific. You can look this shit up, like I did, if you're curious and you doubt it. So as it travels down the spine, it goes from we'll call the back of the neck, travels to this place down the spine behind the heart, behind the solar plexus, behind the like stomach area, the guts, down through the sacrum, and actually all the way down to the tip of your coccyx, your tailbone. And as it's going down, it's delivering information, it's delivering nutrients and shit like that, but it's also collecting information, right? Because when it was in the brain, your cerebrospinal fluid was essentially being polarized. And through that polarization, it was being drawn down your spine. It's like towards the earth, towards its magnetic complement, and it's collecting information through these electrical plexuses in your body. Right, a plexus is basically a bunch of nerves, a clump of it. It's where these nerves, it's like they're nerve centers. So there's the cervical plexus, which is basically at the base. It's like it's C1, C2, C3. It's basically where your cervical spine meets your thoracic spine, just a little bit above that, and it kind of bunches and kind of goes through here. Your vagus nerve, which is the biggest, not the biggest nerve in the body, but it's like is it? I don't know. It's that or the sciatic nerve, really the biggest. But essentially, it's like the bee's knees nerve of the body. It's like the fucking Nile. In that it's very electrically charged, and off of which very many different nerves kind of run off, and where it connects in the brain along with the accessory nerve, which is really just a split. It's the main channel. So it runs through the cervical plexus, and then you've got basically there's like a aortic plexus, but you don't like your heart is like the main electrical station in your body. So you just think of that, and then you've got the solar plexus. Duh. And you've got a sacral plexus, and then to the left and the right, lower than that, by your hips, you've got the sciatic nerve, essentially plexus. They don't really call it as such, but it is, and that runs up and down your legs, and it's a huge bunch. And those collect information, technically from the ground, and then back up, but we don't really make contact with the earth very much with our bare skin, as is natural. Well, as would we would be naturally inclined to do. So as the fluid, which is carrying its own charge, is traveling down your spine, it is collecting information. It's like diagnosing, delivering nutrients, blah, blah, blah. Those are all like really mundane. The most important thing is that it's collecting information. And as it travels down the spine, it's also picking up its polarized charge until it gets to the bottom in close to the sacrum, but it's actually the tip of the coccyx, which is in our bodies. We've got like a what they call a vestibular tail, which is to say that it fell off, or vegistil, vegetail. And what's important about that is that at the very tip of your tailbone is kind of like a hollow cavity. And at the hollow of this cavity, like basically there's a store almost constantly of cerebrospinal fluid, unless you're not well, or unless you spend a lot of time sitting and not exercising or anything like that. Then all that area gets really clumped up, and then there isn't there isn't opportunities for a lot of movement, a lot of sciatica, fibromyalgia, sacral pain originates from this like lack of movement, lack of strength, lack of charge in that area. And then the fluid itself is very much assisted by smooth muscles along the channel. So it almost happens without, like, despite your electrical charge one way or another, but the electrical charge is really important because that's the information. It wants to go down your spine, collect information about you, collect information about the earth, right? Because it wants to get down towards the earth and collect like its field information. Because the earth has different like Wi-Fi zones of its own, and there's some that don't go really past the surface of the earth more, and because the surface of the earth is, it's basically like 3 feet. And then it wants to go back up to and give that information to your spine and get to your brain, and then so that it can use that information and adapt and be just fucking awesome. So what's the deal with 3 days of celibacy, the no alcohol, the don't have bad thoughts, like live purely, otherwise, you're not going to be resurrected after 3 days? That is because, well, first of all, I'll hit the kind of alcohol and like the living purely, cleanly. That is essentially to strengthen your field so that your field has some coherency. If you live more kind of low vibrationally, just really simple, that frequency has less energy. It has less movement power. It can go further, but it goes so slowly, and it doesn't carry a lot of information, right? That's why, if you've heard of Li-Fi, which is basically Wi-Fi using light, what's really extraordinary about that technology is that you can go so much faster, you can carry so much more information, per the rate. It's microwaves is like 5G is like basically in the microwave spectrum versus AM radio, which is which is like on the lesser side, closer to like infrasound. And living in that way, living living unhappily or not, like self-loving or whatever, it's not as powerful in a literal sense. Also, like, and then not touching on like the purity of the calm or whatever like that. Basically, it's you are what you think. In a way, you are you are the light that you eat. So if you're really like angry, I'll just say, and that's the energy that you're taking and like informing and recirculating, and that actually might, I'm just thinking out loud, that might actually cancel out or interfere very much with the energy of the planet. Because she might get pissed off at us every now and then, but even her pissed off is really loving. And but her energy has been very weak. So if we then hold that energy, and then it has to kind of phase with the energy of the planet, it could very well just cancel out a lot of that, which further lowers the energy. But more importantly, it is like canceling out information. So no matter, even if it gets back to your brain, it's just it's not saying anything anymore. And then we come to the sex. Why to refrain from sex for a few days, and why to do it during the days that the moon is in your sun sign. And this is kind of why I'm making this video now, because this moon is in my sun sign, and it's a full moon. And it's a little frustrating sexually. Not like I have someone at this time in my life, but I don't need someone to deal with a little sex frustration, you feel me? And I've been enjoying that form of expression. Because I went during this, like, first of all, I don't know, I'm like a sexual person. And during this kind of lifting up of consciousness and awareness in myself, there's a lot of simple self-celibacy. But more recently, it's been everything's just been more arousing. Cool. You guys got enough information? I'm just admitting that, I guess, for a point of relatability. And to say without saying the challenge and relevance of this whole like, uh, you know, don't jerk off for 3 days, don't have sex for 3 days. Also, what's relevant with the sex thing for 3 days is that your information is mixing with somebody else's information in a very intimate and very powerful way. So even if were able to maintain a level of energy, that blending before the first time that your chrism kind of reached back up to your brain, that's like, I don't know, there's probably something there. I don't know how it would work. I don't know if it would work. Maybe like your brain centers would be like, whoa, that's not us, very powerfully. And so certain things wouldn't really get activated. I don't know. I don't know that part. What I do know is that at the base of your spine, it's got to go all the way back to your brain and working against gravity. And gravity is just, it's not as physical as people think, it's electrical. And so so there's this electrical drawing, magnetic drawing of that information towards the earth, towards the lower chakras, these energy centers in your body. And to get that information back to your brain, there needs to be like energy. And so, like a polarized charge, the moon is very helpful for that. The sun is very helpful for that. It's like, boom, it's on the opposite side. And of like your verticalness. And sexual expression is powerful. That's like sexual magic. The solar plexus is the sun center. It's my understanding, like the kind of seat of the soul, a little bit, is kind of between the solar plexus and the heart. And in evolving human biological avatar, it's a very powerful collection of energy. There's a reason that the umbilical cord connects there and not to like our mouths or our penises, you know? And and when we make love and to conceive a child, whoa, aye, that energy from the parents, that's like boom boom, like that's spirit energy, that's life creation, very very potent. That's orgasm, like that's source connection. So if you just chill for a few days and let it collect in you, like your brain has a really strong charge, your heart has a really strong charge, but from your heart down to your tailbone, that's the furthest distance that like this information has to go. And especially in a polluted world that makes it hard for polarized information to go back up because everything's being drawn down, or left and right because of all the technology, the form of technology that it takes is in our environment. it needs help. It needs like another magnet to go along the way. If you think of it like a a mag rail, like those trains that travel on magnetic railing. Like think of like a loop, and then think of a third of that loop having no charge. So you go really fast from start, first third, second third, and then by the end of the second third, you've got some momentum. So you can make it, but not all the way, and then you kind of get stalled. And then because it's magnet, once you get stalled, you kind of get pulled back to the last state of balance, closer back into that second third. So just doesn't have enough energy to go all the way around the loop. So it collects in the solar plexus area. Plus, the solar plexus area is connected to the sun. So, and this kind of connects to when the moon is in your sun sign. One way of looking at it is just cycles. Like maybe it doesn't matter, because in some way, especially nowadays, because there's so much charge with the planets and the moon and in space and everything like that, and the weakening of our magnetic sphere on the planet. There's just so much charge that it almost doesn't matter. It's just like saying, it's just lending importance to like a few days. It could be any few days. Just fucking take a few days and like chill and build your energy. And then we can get more specific and be like, okay, well, when the moon was in your sun sign, from the day of your birth to today, there's been a consistent cycle that your body it kind of gets used to. So you're tapping into that cycle. And when you were born in your sun sign, you got imprinted with a kind of information, like a signature. And when your moon is in the sun sign, it's essentially saying that the moon is in the space of the sky, of the zodiac, the sky, the space and perspective to you, to us, where the sun is, for 30 fucking days, or 29. Now, the moon's only going to be there for like 2 and a bit, but while it's in that part of the space and then collecting information from the sun, it's not quite, because the sun is still over there or whatever, but it's basically, it's turning that light, that information, into your sun sign. And then you're polarized towards that information. It's like oh, that's like, so it's like calling your name. It's like, oh yeah, no, that's me. That's my tribe. That's my family. I'm inclined towards that energy, and so because of that inclination, it lends itself more attraction and more power, more impetus to move, to be charged. And then it goes back up to the spine so now we've got the missing link of this energy here built up, and like it's like soul energy. So it goes back up, and then what do they say? It dies for 6 days in the vagus nerve or some shit like that, or something like that. So basically, I'm simplifying, but whatever. If you're watching, then you're getting valuable information. Once it crosses the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is like, that's like, if we're going to use like the train analogy. I don't know if your city has a subway and you live in a city or something. Like the third rail, it's like that rail's not electric, that rail's not electric. If you step on that rail, you will die. The vagus nerve is like that. It's it's and especially at that junction in your cervical plexus. So once it crosses that, the way you can consider it, it's almost like that is where it's done. It's like it made the journey. It did the hard part. And so once it crosses that junction, or once as it crosses that junction, that information is becoming coherent. If you want to look at it, it's going. It was it was fuck. I'll use positive and negative. I don't want to, but it's anode, cathode, like. But that's harder to understand. So think of the information as being positively charged or plus sign charged and going down, and then minus side charged coming back up. But all up in here, it needs to be more balanced. Otherwise, you're going to short circuit your shit. So as it crosses this, the electrified vagus nerve, it's becoming more balanced. This is also why it's important, and it only really works if you've experienced, or this actually is the mechanism of self-union. Because otherwise it's just chaos. You have to have, this is like crown chakra type shit. Like you've got to be balanced with yourself in one of your energy centers. Otherwise it's just positive minus, positive minus, positive minus. So it crosses there and it dies, and then it comes back almost to where it started. And then this is where it chills for a few days, literally like 2 or 3. And this is where it disseminates and it discharges all the information that it collected from the earth, from all of your energy centers and everything like that. And then if there's enough energy, if there's enough charge, and it's receiving all the like right pieces of information, this is what can be said to open the pineal, the third eye. Basically, if with enough charge, it stimulates a molecular shift in those chemicals in your brain that basically tell your brain to emit these like different chemicals, blends of chemicals, different electrical like stimulus or whatever, and your brain starts to change. Now, our brains don't finish developing ever. That said, the literature is that it's like, your brains don't finish developing until, they used to say like 18, and that's bullshit. And then now the common in literature is that the brains don't start developing around 25, right? And that's closer. But really, your brains don't finish developing in a big fucking, like, in the most drastic shifts of ways till like 30 through 35, right? So that's in one way you could look at the 33 ladders. You can look at it in the age of Jesus Christ and all that stuff. It's like that's one kind of marker. Yeah, sure, like the columns in the spine. It is also another indication, but also like it's like giving certain substances to a child versus giving certain substances to a 50-year-old. It's going to affect them differently because their brains are different, like their whole bodies are different. In that same way, you know, like I was celibate as shit for the first 18 years of my life. I ain't getting no fucking activation. Yeah. Because, like, nothing, all the other cords and straps weren't fucking connected. So as much as you want to be third eye, like, all up in your awareness or whatever, like, you just, like, some things just take time. And so much is changing because so much is, our environment is changing so drastically in the world, but, so I'm not going to dare to speak definitively on that point, but, some of this just just needs to be enough nervous system development. I think that's it. Yeah, mostly. Yeah, definitely. That's all I want to say for now. And then the magic happens, and then I know some more of that magic, but I'll leave that to be expressed in my book or a video that I make more specific. Anyways, thanks for joining me. I hope that you found this informative, and I love you. I wish you the best of everything because you deserve it. Namaste.